Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And yes, we are up in all of those places after some things have been taken care of, while some more also remains to be dealt with in any case. So however you're tuning in, however you're chiming in, however you're wanting to be a part of, participate in the show, there's many avenues. Have those phone lines open a little bit later, as we usually do, as we already have Marky Mandingo. Good afternoon to you as well, joining us over on the Facebook page there. Likes and reacts coming in that way as well. So one of the better ways to chime in throughout the show, if I do say so, because you can do so throughout the duration, even before we have those phone lines open. So, of the many things going on and affecting us here in our region this day, and, well, after the end of the week, I guess would be the right way to put it as well. Whole lot coming out or coming to light over the weekend, including some remembrances, some events happening in the area, including some, it just seems like a lot was going up in Las Cruces over the weekend, including, among other things, we have a lot of positions that have been going on coming up, being a part of, just the constant conversation going on in our area. Also, James Holmes, let the show begin. Absolutely, we are here and here for it. Good afternoon from also Eric von Holstein-Rathlow with the sun shining. Hope that means you're having a good one. Asking everyone, hope you all had a great weekend. Certainly hope you did as well. So we've been having this kind of, not exactly overarching conversation, but a lot of big positions, either vacant, becoming vacant, going to be replaced, etc., etc. And one of the ones that I also wanted to mention was also the county attorney, among other things. After that hadn't been mentioned in recent conversations, there's already some rumblings going on there, people announcing themselves, etc. But in the meantime, in the very, in action kind of way, we have a new head basketball coach up in Las Cruces after that whole situation. And so that'll makes me a little bit more hopeful that there will be a next season, as of course we do bring you particularly the men's basketball games over on our sister station, Fox Sports 1380, but then also some more movement on some other big positions in the city of El Paso, including the city manager and the chief of police, on how that process is going to work. Spoiler alert, it's going to involve a national search firm, which I am not saying that I was clairvoyant, but I would have been floored if that hadn't have been the case. But we'll discuss that, but also a lot more discussion about what exactly is going on involving the climate charter. And James Holmes saying, a third in 3 years. Let's just say there are differences of reasons of why stuff like that has been going on. Just gonna say that. So, but excitement on that point. But a lot of position overflow. But when it comes to the climate charter amendment, a lot of discussion going on, not even just locally, but even statewide. El Paso being put in the spotlight by at least one publication that we'll end up discussing, but also new analysis on not the overarching costs. We've had that conversation. I'm sure that conversation will continue on about sum total, all of the things that will be caused by it in differing analysis. There's still some argument there. But the city of El Paso now out with some numbers ahead of Tuesday's meeting, where they will be doing more concrete talk about it in a variety of ways on what the even just in-city costs will be, including the cost of studies for some of the overarching goals, I guess would be the right way to put it, that are going to be within this potential charter amendment that is on the ballot coming up in May. So, we got a lot to talk about today, and a lot of being set today. A lot of stuff going on right now. Don't get me wrong. This is not all future vision, looking ahead with a telescope or binoculars, your preferred optics of choice, into what will be coming, but what's also going on right now. So, jam-packed show for you, as is pretty much always the case. I'd be surprised if it ever comes a day when I'm like, hey, you know what, guys, things are good. Let's all go out and have a barbecue or something. Maybe we'll just do that on our own, but we're still going to be doing the show, I fully expect. So let's just dive straight into it here. Among other things, the hiring of a new chief of police. The city of El Paso is moving forward actually on the process. So there, to not confuse, there was a meeting involving city council today. It's not the city council meeting, if that's as clear as mud. This is the one where they set up all of some of the technical stuff going into then the discussion and actual public votes, among other things. The one tomorrow is the one that is subject to, like, among other things, like Public Meetings Act and a particularly quorum, though there is also voting that happens here. Anyway, point is, the one that you can go and like voice your opinion on, among other things, that's the one that happens tomorrow, and more action will be taken. But our news partners from KFOX 14 were out there today as seeing what was going on during the, again, work session, and talking about a recruitment firm has now been hired to conduct a national search for candidates, as was detailed by Deputy City Manager Mario D'Agostino and previous guest on the show that way. And specifically, Strategic Government Resources is the one that's going to be hired to work for this. D'Agostino saying, quote, "This process is going to be extensive. Right now, we're still developing what timeline looks like because we want to make sure we capture everyone's input." So this is not surprising to me. Again, I gotta say, because this is pretty well a boilerplate CYA. How do you keep this from becoming a, well, I didn't choose the guy, they the ones who ended up choosing who it had come from? So again, I'm not at all surprised, because that's just kind of how that works these days. But it's interesting to note that this also comes as there's an item on the city council agenda for tomorrow, that is discussion and action regarding a solicitation for an extensive search to conduct a extensive search firm, rather, to conduct a national search for the hiring of a permanent city manager, including but not limited to consideration of the scope of work for a national search. So, yeah, it's probably going to go the similar way as well. Maybe not the same firm. Again, the one that was named here, Strategic Government Resources. I mean, it leaves the question if it might be, but yeah, that's probably going to be happening there. Yeah, James Holmes definitely given the perspective there. This is the first time I can remember that the city council has 2 retired police officers on it during the process for the search of the chief of police. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, actually, but also just the amount of high-level positions that we're talking about, not even just here, but in the community, in the region at large. And John Brazelton echoing a refrain we've heard before of another waste of money, hire someone internal. But I gotta say, it definitely is, I don't know. It's just the way it goes. If you want to voice yourself during city council, or even on this program, frankly, about the purpose or if this is worthwhile or not, you're certainly welcome to, but this feels boilerplate at this point. Like there's been most of the searches I've been aware of, up to and including the replacement for Joyce Wilson. How we ended up with Tommy Gonzalez, among other things, was the result of one of these searches. Now, I do not mean that necessarily as a knock or any intimation on this process overall. I'm just saying this is just kind of how we're best practice is a phrase that gets thrown around whenever we talk about it this way. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if it does anything besides this, though it is also worth noting, as we mentioned, that NMSU has now hired a new men's basketball head coach, Jason Hooten. And that announcement was actually made late Friday, now the 28th one. And he was previously at Sam Houston State University. And you may be wondering, okay, if these national searches take so long, how did this one happen relatively quickly, like a month and a half, give or take? So I think when it comes to that, there's maybe a more definable pool, or at the very least, a lot of names. You'd kind of scroll through similar or commiserate type of institutions that you think you could poach from, I guess, would be the way it works there. But of course, up there in NMSU, there is some excitement by a report of our news partners over the weekend at KFOX 14. NMSU students excited to welcome new head basketball coach. And again, the major question for us, at least on these airwaves, is what the heck was going to happen with the new season? So this leads to at least some more, hopefully, certainty that it will actually end up happening after it did have to be suspended. And, well, kind of the team suspended until further notice, among other things. So a lot of movement with positions in our area, but also a lot of stuff going on with city council. We'll talk more about that as we come out of this next break, because this isn't even the only this search to be happening when it comes to those actual, major searches. Yeah, there's more to be done there, but also when it comes to more analysis, including we talked about a couple of studies, responses to studies back and forth. We're getting pretty deep in the paperwork, I feel like. And when it comes to the actual cost, at the very least, what the city will be paying, that's some interesting numbers coming out from the City of El Paso ahead of tomorrow's meeting. So let's go ahead and take that first break right now. We got more comments coming in that we'll get to. We also got a lot more that we'll talk about. So you are tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM and all of the places that we are up on, or at least should be today. I think we're up on all of them. If anyone can't hear us, let us know. Yes, I realize that doesn't work. But in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Just one accident right now in your El Paso freeways, a two-vehicle accident blocking the right shoulder, I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza exit. Slow traffic in the lower valley on Loop 375 southbound from the Gateway down to Socorro with 5-minute delays. Eastbound on Artcraft, it's slow from west side to the 10 with 15-minute delays. And Global Reach, still looking at a half-hour delay. Southbound, south of the Spur. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Tudor Dixon Podcast.
Can Vivek Ramaswamy become the next president of the United States? He tells us why he believes he can on the next episode of the Tudor Dixon Podcast, with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you want to sell your home, don't be afraid of the market. Be afraid of picking the wrong agent. Hi, it's Glenn, and I want to talk to you about the best agent, I think, in El Paso, the one I'd call. It's Brian Birds of eXp Realty. And trust me when I say Brian Birds is a great real estate agent. He understands that selling your home is not just an event, it's a process that he has refined and perfected specifically for the El Paso market. He gets your home in front of the right eyes so you can get the right buyer, the right price, and the right timeline. Getting your home sold quickly for the most amount of money possible and the least stress possible is something he does every day. You can trust the whole process to Brian Birds and his team. They do the job, so your only job is just to pack. With Brian Birds right there in El Paso, I don't know why you'd call anybody else. Read Brian's 400 plus 5-star reviews by Googling Brian Birds or go to brianbirds.com. That's Brian, BURDS.com.
On the podcast Inner Cosmos with David Eagleman, the Stanford neuroscientist explores how brain science intersects with our lives, passions, and behaviors. This deep dive into the unexpected facets of our brain science will help you see the world differently.
I'm going to explore the relationship between our brains and our experiences by tackling unusual questions.
Listen to Inner Cosmos with David Eagleman on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, beat the largest timeshare company in federal court and has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-738-9900. That's 800-738-9900.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk, Robbie Florida saying good afternoon to everyone, and Ida Beza Gardner, hi, with the wave as well. And then more commentary, particularly on those national searches that are they're already going to be kicking off, or probably will before soon. Too long? I mean, there's technically the vote still to go, but again, I would be floored if some kind of national search doesn't end up getting voted on by city council and end up happening. Whatever you think about the process or hiring internally, I would certainly hope that there would be some consideration, because national, as far as I'm aware, still doesn't include the local, or at the very least should. But Louis Pinato saying that these positions are often recruited for in advance, mentioning, of course, the current and outgoing city manager, Tommy Gonzalez. So, yeah, I don't know. I would hope that at least someone with, I prefer local in a whole lot of ways, including with perspective, knowledge, though I will also say sometimes outside perspective can be a good thing, particularly when getting around the whole, well, we've always done it that way here kind of thing that you run into just a whole lot in El Paso. I gotta say that. And the whole bucket of crabs mentality. There's a lot of baggage. Let's just say it that way. So particularly would prefer someone that has local experience, but maybe some outside perspective. I might be describing a unicorn. I don't know. So we'll see. If I did know, I would, start my own search firm. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, Sean Gardner also joining us. Good afternoon to you as well. A couple of interesting occurrences and even anniversaries going on right now. El Paso Matters with an interesting piece from over the weekend late last week about the former Iraq POW Shoshana Johnson, as we're on the roughly 20th anniversary of that incident, still living in Northeast El Paso, actually, and the Battle of Nazaria. I never knew how to pronounce that one rightly because I was in middle school, high school at the time. Anyway, that whole circumstance and coming up on a couple decades out of it during the Second Gulf War is a very interesting one. So kind of a retrospective on how she's doing and how things have worked for her now. So interesting one over there from El Paso Matters, as also kind of some just other things going on, including for a memorial service held for UTEP legend Willie Cager at the Don Haskins Center, and happening, some of the details still to be determined, but there's going to be one planned, of course, as his passing as one of the members of the legendary 1966 UTEP men's, Texas Western at that point in time, men's basketball team, and the NCAA tournament win. Couple other things going on in the community wanted to mention. At least one, Oregon Mountains rescue with some pretty fascinating pictures from our news partners at KFOX 14 happening on Saturday. And one of those went up for a hike, didn't end up coming down, and as it was starting to get dark out, freaking out, able to safely remove the hikers from the mountains by about 4 a.m. So just, I know we got longer days going on. Just make sure to plan out hiking well. And at least one stupid criminal circumstance. I know we don't usually chase these, but this one just stood out to me. The headline on its own: police seek 2 armed robbers who held up grocery store in central El Paso. Sounds pretty serious. And the pictures do look pretty serious, including a couple of guys in like head masks or scarves, balaclava, somewhere in that. And a surprising amount of maybe preparation or pseudo preparation, including one of them with his eyebrows shaved off, the one who actually drew a handgun and threatened the clerk at the specifically the El Fandango grocery store at 1928 Olive Avenue, had described as a late teens, thin build, light complexion, and had his eyebrows shaved off. Problem is with their home plan that they demanded money from the cash register, and when the clerk was unable to open the register, the 2 men then headed it to the door and each grabbed a package of cookies and left the scene. So this is not one of those, oh man, something tragic happened. It is still crime and is a bad thing, but all of that, like, unless that's just that dude's style, shaving off his eyebrows, which, okay, I would have made a different choice. A lot of different choices, to be honest with you, but then just saying, okay, well, take some cookies and go. These guys have both got a execution problem as well as a ambition problem. I gotta say, all that, and that's the outcome for it, is disappointing to say the least. But in other more serious crime news, or the kind of ongoing situation still happening in our area, there was a very you see the video, kind of pretty intense scene over the weekend, as an article title from a Fluckameta saying it's called the Munchies. Again, that's a serious, I mean, like it's a snatch and grab to grab cookies, that's one thing, but ending up pulling out a handgun to do this is, I don't know, that's more planability than I've ever seen a pothead have outside of the construction of a smoking apparatus. Let me just put it that way. And Eric asking, did they have the Edgar haircut? Yeah, I've seen actual reporting going on in our region about that lately, and unfortunately can't tell that they did have, like, except for essentially an eye slit, the head and lower, like jaw covered. So that's why I call it like balaclava, somewhere in that style. I couldn't tell if it was just like a folded t-shirt done that kind of way. So yeah, it's just, I'm going to call that stupid overall. But again, in somewhat more serious news, a pretty serious incident of a Texas DPS trooper pursuing a driver into Mexico at the international border there. And yeah, Eric found Holstein Rathwell. Yeah, they were not leaving empty-handed, but again, just stupid is the phrase I keep coming back to there. But yeah, video on social media over the weekend showing, a actual pursuit by a Texas DPS trooper over the bridge and into Mexico, eventually stopping, and actually the DPS trooper stopping the vehicle and apprehending him there. Texas DPS still pending making a statement because they are working on releasing something regarding the video. So they did ask a former Border Patrol Sector Chief, Victor Manjarres Jr., our news partners over at KFOX 14 these days, if this was be allowed. He said, generally not, but saying, quote, I am certain an argument will be made that the trooper was, quote unquote, in hot pursuit, but that does not override the sovereignty of another nation. This would be allowed if prior arrangements were made with the U.S. and Mexico. There were Mexican officials on the scene as the apprehension was made, but were kind of standing to the side. So pretty intense one. And also more video has come out about the circumstance that we talked about last week of a Texas man dying after, the headline says falls, but from the video I saw, kind of looked like he jumped, expecting there to be more road on the other side of it, near Paisano, not too far from Spur 1966, on that kind of elevated part of Paisano, but not the actual border highway west extension, that one that is that like 100-foot flying overpass that can be seen in the background of the video. There was actually, people have been wondering about, in these pursuits, this was one of those attempted ditching, I would say, because a lot of people were still in the vehicle, but the guy, after crashing into the concrete barrier, ended up jumping out, tried to go into the opposite lanes of traffic just by running, and after there was like another vehicle passing there, went the other way, and I think he leapt over expecting there to be more roadway, but there was just a whole lot of air. And so there was a question has come up about, in these incidents, is there, what is the response? DPS, so currently a couple of their big suburban style SUVs can be seen there in the pursuit, but the video was actually taken by a helicopter. That's one of the questions that y'all have been bringing up, what is actually being devoted to this type of apprehension, and is there aerial coverage? And in this case, yes. And the release of the video happened either right as or soon after we got on air to talk about this, or at least mentioned it, I do believe, on Friday. So pretty intense scene and circumstances there, and also at least one more super beyond unfortunate, among other things. There was another instance of a smuggling attempt gone horribly wrong after in the Uvalde sector of the border, or near Uvalde, the sector of the Border Patrol. Texas Tribune, among others, noting that Border Patrol responded to a 911 call alerting them about a group of people who were trapped for hours inside of a shipping container inside and a locked train car. At least 2 were found dead and several others injured, including a number that had to be either flown out or taken to nearby medical facilities. That is just another beyond unfortunate, horrific circumstance is probably a better phrase that I want to end up saying, because the idea of this happening, being locked from the outside, unable to escape, just another circumstance of what is going on with our border situations. Honestly, as there has been more crackdowns, there have been more attempts to get around those, and this is, I see, a symptom of it. And the people willing to put people into this circumstance, the coyotes, cartels, etc., I have no love lost with them. The idea of putting anyone into this circumstance on whatever bill of goods they ended up selling them, and not actually caring about their health, welfare, their end results overall, because they probably already got the cash in hand, is just Just despicable, among other things. So, tell you what, I rounded up a bunch of things there. Let's go ahead and get into that next break and then get into one of the other major topics for today, including what is going on with the Climate Charter Amendment, Prop K for short. The way we'll kind of continually end up referring to that because the Climate Policy Charter Amendment. See, I'm not even getting it right there. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that break. And we'll talk about that, including new numbers out of City Council that will be getting discussed, but you can see for yourself over on the City Council agenda right now. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Thanks. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso fire crews responded to a large fire this morning at a doctor's office in West El Paso. It happened at 2930 North Stanton, right behind the Albertsons grocery store near UTEP. A spokesperson for the El Paso Fire Department said 14 units responded, but no one was in the building at the time of the fire. And 15 undocumented migrants were found in a train car in Texas on Friday night. Dozens of first responders, including Border Patrol, responded to the scene. The Uvalde Police Department said they received a 911 call from an unknown person who reportedly said numerous undocumented illegal immigrants were suffocating in a train car. Authorities said a total of 15 people were found inside that needed immediate medical attention. 3 of them were treated at the scene. 5 of them were airlifted to San Antonio area hospitals. 5 others were taken to local hospitals in Uvalde, and 2 of the migrants were found dead. I'm Iraca Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso freeways crash-free right now. Got some stop-and-go traffic eastbound Artcraft from West Side over to the 10 Desert Boulevard with 12-minute delays. Slow on Montana Avenue eastbound McRae to Zaragoza is a 10-minute backup. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza. That earlier crash is cleared. All lanes are back open. And heavy traffic on northbound Mesa Street from downtown to the I-10. 5-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Cold front rolling in for tonight. So the winds are going to go northerly to northeasterly, about 5 to 15, occasionally gusting up to 20 miles per hour. This should push our low temperatures down into the 30s for tomorrow morning. So certainly coat jacket for a Tuesday morning. We're looking at breezy and cool conditions for your Tuesday, only a high around 62. Lighter winds for our Wednesday, partly cloudy skies, high 76. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Discover. Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome at the end of your first year. They automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right. Everything you've earned, doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
An orthopedic surgeon makes understanding pain painless. It's the biggest frustration that patients have. This is Dr. Pamela Mehta talking about aches with unexpected origins. I see patients with pain in their knees, their hips, their back. Oftentimes, the pain is actually coming from their feet. Bet they aren't expecting to hear that. Those patients are super surprised. They can't believe that the pain in their knee isn't coming from actually inside the knee. But if you think about it, the feet are the base to your whole body. That's why she suggests personally fit arch supports. Emphasis on the personal fit. If you get something basing it just on your shoe size, it isn't going to fit you properly. And if it doesn't fit well, it probably won't work well. Go get arch supports fitted to you. It's as easy as going into a Good Feet store. You heard the doctor. Try Good Feet for yourself with a free fitting and test walk. Learn more at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Are you tired of listening to stories that are saturated with wokeness? If you are, then you should try Red Pilled America. We tell good old-fashioned stories that align with middle America values. Listen to Red Pilled America anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube. And as Juans is demonstrating, yes, we are up there after some of these things being dealt with. More to go, but at least we're back up where we need to be. Do appreciate it. As well as Twitter at Talk El Paso, twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Some of the places you can find us, really most of those in between Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk are the best ways you can find us, as a lot of other conversation, including some dark humor going on there, including the idea of instant rehabilitation. For at least one of those incidents, the guy trying to find concrete where there wasn't any way, among other things. Trito Sack with and some other comments I want to get to. Willie Jenkins saying Shoshana was a Veterans Court mentor, also a 346th District Veterans Treatment Court, and we need more mentors and veterans. Come on down. Interesting point there. Yeah, still active and present in the community, even 20 years after the whole incident involving the ambush of the, I believe it was the 507th. Anyway. Trader Sack over on the YouTube as well, saying, I just recently moved to Horizon City. I'm an avid runner, hardly ever skip a day, but I don't like being chased by loose dogs. What's the deal with dog owners in this town? That's a deeper question than I think you intended to ask. And because, among other things, they may not consider themselves owners, going on to say something to them, they just have this blank, silly, dumbfounded look on their faces like they don't understand. They're supposed to keep their dogs on their property. So the thing is, at least the way I think about it, so someone correct me if I'm wrong, you got a different perspective, that essentially when you get into the outskirts outside of central parts or like the most developed parts of even the smaller municipalities on the outskirts of the city of El Paso, is that there's just dogs. They're just around. Maybe not en masse, but they're just kind of out there. I had some family actually coming from out of town that were in let's just say a different circumstance and culture where they're from when it comes to animals in general. And they saw a dog by the side of the road kind of trotting along like, oh my God, I need to go rescue that stray dog. Or like trying to call animal control. I think they actually ended up trying, had kind of explained to them that that's just kind of how it is. I'm not calling that a good thing, because the idea of any kind of roaming or potentially feral animals is not a good thing. But there's also a certain reality to be recognized that it just kind of is that way. So yeah, so that's what, as much as I'm saying to the whole situation Tridosac is describing, they may not even call it their dog, just this is just one that shows up and happens to be on my property. Like, ownership can be a nebulous thing, particularly in those circumstances. So good luck is what I'm saying. I also have to say that there's a reason a lot of people who go hiking, walking, etc., outside of like the mountain people, I mean, they may have hiking sticks, but a lot of people who go walking around town that end up having the let's just call them implements with them, whether it be the amount of people I've seen that use as a walking stick a golf club around town for purposes similar to this. Like, it's one of those unspoken things, at least in my experience. So good luck. Also, yeah, Willie Jenkins adding, and some of these people can't take care of themselves, let alone an animal. Another point to be made there, as well as other just out and out trolling going on in our comments, including assuming what we're going to talk about. Way to continue just the perpetuating of the straw man thing that you love calling out for everyone else, because what we're actually talking about is the study coming out from the city of El Paso, is what we actually mentioned in the comments here. So know what you're talking about before you dive into it would just be my firm recommendation. Before we get into that, one thing I want to mention is that an interesting recommendation out from the Las Cruces Police Department advising against posting doorbell security footage online, saying that basically if you got concerns or evidence of a crime that you think, take it to police first, because that would be the way they prefer to do investigations and not having to find out about it secondhand. So that's just one I wanted to mention. But a couple of things when it comes to the climate charter amendment. A Texas Tribune article out today titled El Paso Charter Fight Tests Whether a Texas City Will Move Away from Fossil Fuels, subtitled As Global Efforts to Combat Climate Change Falter, Climate change activists have turned to local initiatives to rein in carbon emissions. A May vote on a city charter amendment, has thrust El Paso into the fray. So, yeah, we'll see that perspective. But the real one I wanted to mention here, best article encapsulation, would be from El Paso Matters, out late last week, titled El Paso Climate Charter Would Cost City $150 million to Enact, Consultants Say. Now, you don't have to take my or even their word for it, because one of the benefits of seeing the agenda set usually on Thursdays of the preceding week from the city of El Paso is that you can actually see the full, roughly, 10-page study done by Year Out Energy, YEAROUT, Year Out. They have it actually fully posted there, breaking down in a bunch of different ways, including what the budgetary amounts just for the city budget. So not the larger costs that have been talked about in those previous studies, but so this was a study commissioned by the city of El Paso to analyze what some of the associated costs would be. As El Paso Matters noted, more than 2,500 word actual climate charter amendment. It is extensive, and we've broken down some of the questions about what actually comes out of it and how that would work previously. But this one puts some numbers on it, including what the ongoing costs would be and what some of the actual metering and different renewable energy costs, particularly the renewable energy, the cost over the lifetime of the climate charter amendment, including the 100% clean renewable energy by 2045 number and the increments that go along with that. Put just that amount alone. So in the study, it's section 9.9 renewable energy. That number alone just costs for the city of El Paso would be $143 million over, again, by 2045 to achieve those goals, including renewable energy goals plan over a 3-year period in establishing that. The actual energy efficiency and electrification, self-funding it would be $50 million. Getting that 80% clean renewable energy by 2030 would be $67.5 million. And that next jump to the 100% clean renewable energy by 2045 being $25 million for, again, that just for this subsection, $143 million. And so the way this study, and it appears that the city of El Paso will approach this as one of the questions we have was 100% for the city of El Paso. What that would then, essentially what the scope of that would be. Would that be requiring everyone in El Paso, or would that just be the essentially operations of the city of El Paso? So looking at these numbers and the way that the study goes about it, this is talking about just for the actual city of El Paso. So the government of the city of El Paso. Let me clarify that way. And as further noted by El Paso Matters, that they put the total amount of the cost, $150 million, because among other things, there are other costs that are involving in here. So I'll call it actually a bit over once you also include some of the other subsections of what is actually in there. And if you want to call this fear-mongering and disinformation, go look at the study for yourself and tell me where I'm wrong. Specifically, if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to like it. I'm not particularly happy about it myself. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't like it, tell me where I'm wrong. As opposed to just saying, no, this is bad, you shouldn't be talking about it. Because, good flipping luck, my dude. Anyway, the actual cost to actually do some of the... Okay, one of the items about particularly the municipalization of El Paso Electric. This is noted, again, by the city of El Paso. Just to make that perfectly clear, in case you're also not read up on the subject yet. Anyway, the actual cost to do some of these studies would estimate, the city of El Paso actually has it on its website under the, if you go to elpasotexas.gov/EP-charter/FAQs, El Paso Matters notes this themselves, but if you want to check it out for yourself on what some of the questions about the cost for it, among other things, and they do list that $155 million cost through 2045 on that same website. And some of the things, including just the consulting costs of it. They also have a further breakdown of what the climate director would cost per year. $260,000 is what is currently listed. And the cost for climate department personnel at $1.27 million. Let's round that up there, as well as other operations and total costs. And so there's also more on the cost recovery due to elimination of fees, permits, and fines associated with these kind of things. But one of the ones I want to specifically focus on is what it would be to actually do the studies related to the municipalization of El Paso Electric. And the City of El Paso notes that that cost on its own could be at most about $12 million in a couple of different phases. El Paso Matters further notes that the Austin-based consultant Heather Bailey, who has previously worked in other municipalization efforts, including Excel Energy up in Colorado, did not end up working out that way, has a franchise agreement with Excel, I do believe, but that it would be a two-phase process, that the initial phase would be between $1.2 and $2.5 million and take between about a year and a half to complete. And again, this is for the study on the municipalization of El Paso Electric. Then also, if that ends up being encouraging, according to Bailey, then there would be a more detailed phase 2 feasibility study that could take up to 5 years to complete and cost up to $10 million, according to, again, Bailey, and the report is, again, noted by El Paso Matters. So these are some of the numbers that are going to be discussed by City Council, among other things, and do believe tomorrow's meeting, it's where it's actually on the agenda for itself. So you can check this all out for yourself. El Paso, Texas.gov, click on the government tab, and you can find, it takes a little bit of digging, but you can get to the charter and scroll through these. This one is exactly, which item is it? I swear, these item agendas have not gotten any less confusing, if anything more so. But I want to say you are looking at, among other things, if you're looking for the climate policy, petition to add a climate policy to the city charter, that is item 27 on the agenda for tomorrow, if you actually go and look for it there. But also, there's the items that we referenced earlier about when it comes to the search for the new city manager, among other things. A couple items on that, 22 and 23 to be specific. So those are some of the items that are affecting us here, and big ones, and probably apparently more conversation going on about El Paso or coming up with it. So a lot of money being talked about. Some of these costs going again through 2045, but that the current estimate of what would take to just the city of El Paso essentially build out the renewables in order to specifically source the electricity for city operations. So again, the way that they're encapsulating this, not as everyone in El Paso required to be on renewables, though it does noted both by El Paso Matters and by some of these studies that there is movement by El Paso Electric to do this on their own, as was mentioned in one of the response FAQs. We're getting pretty deep into paperwork on all of this. There's a lot of reading associated with it, so I wouldn't blame y'all if you weren't totally up on it, but that there are efforts by El Paso Electric to be on similar-ish timelines for all of their power generation. But, well, we're talking about pretty decent chunk of change over the duration of some of these plans. Again, with the kind of major bottom line number being that 100% renewable for City of El Paso operations by 2045. So that's a lot of numbers I've broken down already. I am sure that we'll have some input or conversation wanting to go on there. But if you're wanting to comment, chime in on any of the things we brought up today, already covered a lot of ground. We'll go ahead and take that break right now and open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the program. A lot of comments coming in. We'll try to actually get into it and some of the comments as much as possible. But if you want to get on the line, that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Eastbound traffic on Artcraft west side of the 10. It's a 5-minute delay. Global Reach has a 30-minute delay from the spur down to Montana Avenue southbound. The north-south route that connects Vista del Sol to Pelicano Drive, Mission Ridge is now closed for the next 3 weeks. Your alternate can be Loop 375 Frontage Road. And starting tomorrow, a full closure of the 54 southbound at the Spur. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If April is showering your company with open job positions, check out Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job today and get hiring by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
Hey, Sean Hannity here from my friends at Lone Star Transfer. If you felt like booking your timeshare was difficult in the past, you know it's recently been almost impossible. Now, most clients are shocked to learn that their timeshare is now available to the public, and that severely limits booking options. Many owners have also reached out, and they're upset that their yearly dues have nearly doubled during the maintenance fee season. Now, for well over a decade, our friends at Lone Star Transfer, a family-owned company, they have had the pleasure of helping thousands and thousands of people legally and permanently get out of their never-ending timeshare fees. Now, Lone Star Transfer guarantees the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call my good friends for a free, no-obligation consultation. Write this down. Call today, 833-594-0075. 833-594-0075. They're online at LoneStarTransfer.com.
The Mattawa Caves is a brand new fiction podcast that marries supernatural horror storytelling with an immersive psychological thriller. Tune in to uncover the chilling story and secrets as old as the caves themselves.
Without monsters, there are no victims, no prosecutions, no defenses, no justice.
Listen to the Mattawa Caves, that's MANTAWAUK Caves, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Is your tub worn out, but you're not sure who to trust to replace it? With over 2 million successful bath remodels, people trust Bathfitter because we know how to do it right. We've been custom designing and manufacturing baths for over 35 years. Our unique tub-over-tub installation takes as little as a day with no demo to fit your busy schedule. And we offer a lifetime warranty on every tub. That's how confident we are in our quality and durability. Bathfitter, it just fits. Visit bathfitter.com to book your free consultation.
She came to New York City dead, but left more alive than ever. We'll have Sarah Gonzalez's personal testimony. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, and a lot of conversation, particularly on the whole idea of what's going on with that Prop K Climate Policy Charter Amendments, as I finally get those words straight, and a lot of other conversation going on there as well. And Eric von Holstein-Rathlow, among other things, saying this climate bill has some social justice clause that is supposed to make sure minorities aren't discriminated against. How does that work in a majority minority city? Does that mean others are protected as well? There has been some conversation. I think it comes down to mostly income levels, among other things. Also underserved area, or some of the language being worked there, but I think that is, I don't know if I've seen that in one of the FAQs so far. Let me delve a little bit deeper into what that actually ends up looking like. But also others noting about the passing of Willie Cager and that upcoming, I don't think I have the date just yet, memorial service to be held at the Don Haskins Center. So we'll certainly be looking like that. And also certainly agreeing with Flaco Jimenez saying about people wanting to actually contribute as opposed to hiding behind fake profiles, and some intimations of testicular fortitude. Appreciate the concept there. But let's just say we got a lot more to discuss when it comes to that. Let's get at least to one phone call before we hit that top of the well, I'll tell you what, I think we're a little bit too close to it as it is. So if you're on the line, stay there. But don't forget, if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. That number to call is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTS. I'm going to get to a couple more comments in the meantime, including RJ Promotes, saying, I'd love to spend $500,000 a month while earning just $5K a month, but I can't get any bank to let me. Same problem, got to be honest with you. Louis Panato with a interesting take, including saying, look who gets rich when they obligate our monies for these projects. We have several pet projects like the Plaza Theater, Cohen Stadium, Judson William Convention Center, Baseball Park, all money pits and rarely used. I'm sure there are more. I'm not saying that these projects aren't expensive. I mean, there are, for the ballpark at the very least, we had to blow up City Hall, among other things, to make that work. It was demolished on very particular day for me myself, but that whole demolition weekend that I was present for a bunch of, but rarely used. I get that you don't like it, but curious to know what metric you're putting on that. If it's not in constant use, like there are days when it's not used, sure, show me a facility that doesn't have that. But I would say most of them get a pretty good amount of use. I mean, the Plaza Theater, among other things, I've been to a couple events myself there this year. So not saying that you have to like it or not, but also let's respond and understand reality, among other things. So we're already due for that next break right now, so this is why I didn't want to shortchange anyone else in the comments and in the callership. But yeah, there's a lot more to be discussed. And John Browsden also adding, there should be a state law where a city can't add another bond issue until a previous one is paid off first. Oh, that would be more of a can of worms than I think you realize, because debt amounts it's not a one project then another. There tend to be multiple going on concurrently, and I am sure that would be a hotly debated one if it were to come up. But if you want to suggest such things, of course, we do have that we're about halfway through getting some of those updates from our regional and local state representation. Regional mostly referring to state senators, among other things. But yeah, so I don't know if it would be possible in this one, but maybe you could do it. There, of course, been some willingness when it comes to the state level to reach down into the local billing positions, among other things. So, yeah, we can talk more about that. Let's go and take that break and come back and get more calls and comments on the line. So remember that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Eastbound traffic on Artcraft west side of the 10. It's a 5-minute delay. Global Reach has a 30-minute delay from the spur down to Montana Avenue southbound. The north-south route that connects Vista del Sol to Pelicano Drive, Mission Ridge, is now closed for the next 3 weeks. Your alternate can be Loop 375 Frontage Road. And starting tomorrow, a full closure of the 54 southbound at the spur. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
If you want to sell your home, don't be afraid of the market. Be afraid of picking the wrong agent. Hi, it's Glenn, and I want to talk to you about the best agent, I think, in El Paso, the one I'd call. It's Brian Birds of eXp Realty. And trust me when I say Brian Birds is a great real estate agent. He understands that selling your home is not just an event, it's a process that he has refined and perfected specifically for the El Paso market. He gets your home in front of the right eyes so you can get the right buyer, the right price, and the right timeline. Getting your home sold quickly for the most amount of money possible and the least stress possible is something he does every day. You can trust the whole process to Brian Birds and his team. They do the job, so your only job is just to pack. With Brian Birds right there in El Paso, I don't know why you'd call anybody else. Read Brian's 400-plus 5-star reviews by Googling Brian Birds or go to brianbirds.com. That's Brian, BURDS.com.
Records, milestones, firsts, lasts, and everything in between. What happened today in sports history on iHeartRadio?
What's happening, fellow sports fans? It's Andy West. Let's take a look back on this day in sports history, March 27th. We'll start off in 1951, the first year the men's NCAA basketball tournament featured 16 teams. Kentucky beats Kansas State 68-58 for their third championship in school history. Today in 1977, American tennis star Chris Evert wins her fourth and final WTA Tour Championship 2-6, 6-1, 6-1 against England's Sue Barker at Madison Square Garden. And today in 1998, the Chicago Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks match up at the Georgia Dome, not the Omni where the Hawks would normally play, in order to see Michael Jordan's last game against the Hawks. A crowd of 62,046, the largest in any game in NBA history, watched the Bulls win 89-74.
Now you know. Today in sports history on iHeartRadio.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Police have a theory behind the Nashville school shooter. The shooter has been identified as a 28-year-old transgender female who used to attend the Covenant Presbyterian School at one point. The Nashville police chief said she had maps of the school and had been conducting surveillance prior to the shooting. Investigators are going through her home and interviewing her father. The chief says he's not yet ready to discuss the theory. President Biden said the shooting is heartbreaking.
It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation. And we have to do more to protect our schools so they aren't turned into prisons.
Widespread devastation after an outbreak of deadly tornadoes across Mississippi and Alabama claimed at least 26 lives. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves was joined by state and federal officials Sunday as they pledged support. He also thanked the Biden administration for rolling forward a federal state of emergency, saying that help is on the way. At least 50 U.S. government officials are suspected or confirmed to have been targeted by commercial spyware overseas. Lisa Taylor has more.
A senior White House official told reporters that number is expected to grow as investigations continue. The revelation comes as President Biden issued an executive order to prohibit the use of commercial spyware across the federal government that poses a risk to national security and human rights. The move follows the long-running controversy over the misuse of a powerful spyware called Pegasus by foreign governments to hack journalists and dissidents around the world.
The man suing Gwyneth Paltrow over a ski crash says he heard a blood-curdling scream before he was hit. Retired optometrist Terry Sanderson, who's suing the actress for $300,000, says he suffered from a concussion and a brain injury and broke 4 ribs. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The White House is threatening to veto a Republican energy package. The legislation seeking to bolster fossil fuels, accelerate infrastructure projects, and do away with the Inflation Reduction Act is expected to come up for a vote in the House this week. In a statement, the White House argued the measure would pad oil and gas company profits and undercut public health and the environment. A rising star in the California Democratic Party is dropping out of a major race.
San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher checking himself into a treatment center for post-traumatic stress, trauma, and alcohol abuse. Fletcher also dropping out of the race to replace termed-out State Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, a seat he would have likely won. On Twitter, Fletcher said he needs to focus on his health and family. He'll be on medical leave from the Board of Supervisors. I'm Eddie McCoven.
It's time to give that lawn some springtime attention. Matt McClure explains.
There's always a lot of chores to be done in the spring in the lawn and the garden.
Kansas State University Extension yard and garden expert Dennis Patton telling the USDA's Gary Crawford, we need to remove the leaves that fell since the fall.
And we want to make sure that those leaves do not pile up and bury the turf grass, because it will shade and kill out the grass.
He encourages fertilization to perk the grass up, but he doesn't recommend using weed-killing sprays in the spring.
Because they drift really easily into the breeze, and they can damage non-target plants. So it affects the redbud trees, the tomatoes that got planted in the spring.
And don't cut the grass super low because it actually helps the weeds to grow. I'm Matt McClure.
2 tigers that escaped from a Georgia zoo are back in captivity after a tornado damaged their enclosures. Pine Mountain Safari in Troup County sustained damage after a twister tore through the area Sunday, briefly allowing the tigers to roam free. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Join us to celebrate the songs and artists you've loved over the past year.
At our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Awards.
Hosted by Lenny Kravitz.
With Innovator Award recipient Taylor Swift.
And performances by iHeart Icon Award recipient Pink, Coldplay, Kelly Clarkson, LL Cool J, Keith Urban, Pat Benatar, and Neil Giraldo, Lotto, Money Long, Cody Johnson, and more.
Watch on Fox and listen on iHeartRadio.
Tonight at 7 p.m.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories. She came to New York City dead, but left more alive than ever. We'll have Sarah Gonzalez's personal testimony. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
All the radio stations you love, every playlist to match your mood, the podcasts that everyone's talking about. If it's on the iHeartRadio app, it's free. Download the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
iHeartRadio.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Rosetta Stone, where language is learned. RosettaStone.com.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Elliot in the morning.
Rover's Morning Glory.
Booker and Stryker.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
Alter Ego, are you ready?
All of the best free curated playlists.
Nobody does it better.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
Hey guys, this is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome.
All of your favorite superstars.
We're the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
And best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And let's not confuse fact with opinion here. And if you have something that you don't like, of course you can, though if you're being asked to justify it and you say that I'm simply stating a fact here, yeah, good luck with that. Because if you're calling out entire groups of people that you disagree with as being essentially wrong and always evil, yeah, that's not discussion. And that's what we're going to continue to focus on this show, is talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland, because we got quite a lot of them, among other things. We have Mondo Moncada joining us over on the one of the social media pages, the Twitch stream. So howdy to you as well. And yeah, a whole lot of conversation about some of these situations going on, including law enforcement, regulatory searches for law enforcement and otherwise. And yeah, that climate charter policy amendments. That's not the right order of those phrases. Prop K is the definite, it's the shorthand way that I'll keep referring to it. But just in case anyone is confused about this, yeah, the climate policy charter amendment is what we're talking about. Armando Moncada saying, yeah, didn't have to read much of Prop K to decide to vote against it. There's a lot of analysis going into this here. So the part we were talking about today, involving the $150 million plus that the City of El Paso, according to analysis they have had done by, again, that firm. You can see this for yourself. Year Out Energy, YEAROUT Energy. And that's their website as well, .com. So those are the numbers that they are looking at and will be discussed during tomorrow's city council meeting. But let's go ahead and get to those phone lines now. Again, if you wanted to get on the line, that number to do so, just had one drop off. So this is available right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeastern line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew. Well, I commend those folks working on that charter amendment. We have very dirty air. It's not going to get any cleaner if we don't do anything about it. So good for them. I mean, again, I think we should certainly going to get in touch with these people down the line and encourage them to consider including down the line some provision that would, take those inevitable rate increases and turn them into equity in the name of El Pasoans. Sadly, a shooter opened fire at a private Christian grade school in Nashville today, killing 3 kids and 3 adults. 3 9-year-old children and 3 adults. And the suspected shooter was fatally shot by police. And it's a 28-year-old woman. That's very strange. You know, women, I really think, are the better of the species. They're not the mass killers that these guys are, these crazy white guys. So this 28-year-old woman from Nashville, she had at least 2 assault weapons and a handgun with her. Now about that, the same year that the Second Amendment was passed, there was an insurrection against the whiskey tax that was started out there in the Western frontier, and it's known as the Whiskey Rebellion.
Right.
It took place between 1791 and 1794. Now, at the time, President George Washington sent in militias from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Virginia to put down the rebellion. Now, some historians write that this demonstrated that President Washington saw the Second Amendment as a way of protecting our republic, not as a means to render it powerless. And so according to these historians, Washington felt that no individual citizen possessed the natural right to own arms that was inherently invulnerable. The founders never intended to write a provision in the Constitution that would allow a small band of armed insurgents to overthrow the constitutional republic.
Raul, do you know what a privateer is? Familiar at all with that phrase? Know what it is or is entailed? And by the way, that does actually still exist, or letters of marque, which is a phrase that does still exist in the Constitution. Any familiarity with that?
No, not really, not too much. But speaking of insurgents, news reports are that special counsel Jack Smith is looking into a criminal conspiracy case involving Trump and his co-conspirators for attacking the Capitol. So there you go. See, again, a well-regulated militia necessary to the security of a free state. That is there for the state, not to overthrow the state, but to secure the state against some foreign invaders. And what they were concerned about is the King of England coming back, or maybe the Spaniards. But they certainly weren't counting on the American citizens. And when they did rise up, as we saw here in that Whiskey Rebellion, well, George Washington called in the militias to put them down.
Okay, so the reason I bring up the letter of marque, and you're talking about, the Whiskey Rebellion being one of those pre-constitutional crises, among other things, and calling out the militia to deal with that. So there actually is Article 1, subsection A, Clause 11 of the Constitution is talking about what Congress has the authority to do. So let me just flip back right to there within my handy-dandy Constitution about what they are able to do, because that letter of marque is significant in understanding, particularly if you're talking about what was existing in the era of the Founding Fathers, as you're also referring to there, because what they actually were able to do, and let me see if I can find it here. Under that part, to declare what powers given to Congress, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. So that is referring to, kind of in general, can be thought of as the idea of privateering, also known as the granting of private citizens the authority to effectively wage commerce war on behalf of the United States. Didn't exactly end up has been used a whole lot lately, and definitely not in like modern conflicts, anyone in living memory. I'm willing to say that. But just the perspective you're talking about there, and the idea of, as we're talking about things way outside the area, but we're just keep coming up, and you want to bring this up here, so let's talk about it, of what is actually available and what was possible for there. Talking about, a lot of conversations going the idea of the types of weaponry and what was available to the common person at that point in time. And the idea that, automatic weapons or anything that was not, black powered and had to be reloaded by itself, single shot kind of thing, often comes up here. But particularly that, letters of marque and privateering involve the private use, maintenance, and employment of warships. I'm talking about cannons. I am talking about their owning entire damn, floating gunboats being the small end of it, among other things, as being within the private armories and arsenals within citizens of the United States. So if you're going to go with the whole what it was at the time and what was known to the founders and what, again, still exists within the Constitution, are you wanting to make sure that everyone on your block will, under that kind of provision, have a cannon in their yard? Would you be happy with that?
Blah, blah, blah. That really helps those dead kids and the 3 adults and all the victims of mass shootings in this country. All your rhetoric and blah, 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 Andrew, and your followers. It doesn't help one person come back. I wish your listeners had to listen to the impact statements of the parents.
Okay, as we've been about this before, again, you're going between the emotional and then the logical about what is it. So let's go with the emotional. No one I know, no one I would consider a reasonable person wants this type of incident to happen. Literally no one. But the idea of how we then accomplish that, and of all things, okay, let's just say that we're going to put all shooters, everyone even accused of it, and we're going to all house them in your house because that's the greatest good here. Would that be reasonable? I'm just going to go ahead and answer for you and say, no, you would not be in favor of that, because if you're looking at how things work and what would actually be sustainable and actionable towards doing that is important. And so none of the laws that have been suggested so far have actually been reasonable to me, and I think any reasonable thinking person, of accomplishing the goal that you are putting forth here, because the substantial, and I do mean the vast, beyond vast, the almost entire majority of what you are talking about and often push for in terms of trying to take action on this comes down on those who have literally never committed a crime, never done anything, never even had a thought about that in their mind. So let's call this generously 95, probably closer to 99.9%, given the scope of what this happens and what this is within our country. So give me something, give me anything that you would think would actually be effective in these type of cases, where we're not talking about someone with serious mental instability, as is some of the early indications of what's going on with that incident that you're referring to there. And for anyone saying, we brought up other random stuff besides this, we're a local radio show. No, we don't do the whole reviews of everything going on across the nation, and that's what we've been consistently throughout. So, good luck with that line of argument. Anyway, if you're wanting to talk about that, yeah, there is no reasonable thing that comes out of this. There's not that's just how it is. And anyone that further espouses that has also been actually up there in the comments as well, saying that any level of gun control shall not be infringed. There is no right that is not subject to limitations, period. End of sentence. This has been both in the Constitution as well as been determined by multiple generations of the Supreme Court. But to say that, we just have to do anything regardless of what it takes is just unreasonable. And I think you know that, but slapping those around that you disagree with politically because you see guns and liking them as a conservative issue, and therefore you'd like to slap around the people who hold that idea of it, is not how the law is supposed to work, among other things. So, appreciate the point in the call, particularly on the local aspects for when it actually came from. And before you try to tell me that no one is saying take away all the guns, even just do on Twitter, just search up the hashtag it's the guns. Go for it. I dare you. And you're going to find a whole lot of people saying that. So if you're saying that they're all essentially false flag, okay, good luck with that, but don't pretend you're talking about facts either. Anyway, and just to make it clear, I'm talking about the current caller's viewpoints on this more than anything. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Again, appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth anyway, but we're going to go ahead and take more and talk more about what we going on in the community, as among other things. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heads up for some slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound Copia out to the Hunter Viscount exit with 5-minute delays. I-10 westbound is starting to slow down from Sunland Park up to Trans Mountain with a 5-minute backup. Slow traffic on Zaragoza northbound Sunfire up to Montana, 7-minute delays there. Starting tomorrow morning, the US 54 southbound bridge to the eastbound Spur 601 will be closed. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
You've probably read The Lorax and the Grinch, but do you know the story behind the stories? We'll have the story of both of them. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On the podcast Inner Cosmos with David Eagleman, the Stanford neuroscientist explores how brain science intersects with our lives, passions, and behaviors. This deep dive into the unexpected facets of our brain science will help you see the world differently.
I'm going to explore the relationship between our brains and our experiences by tackling unusual questions.
Listen to Inner Cosmos with David Eagleman on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Billy, your gas light's on. We need to stop and fill up.
No way, Jen. Gas around here is too expensive. We can make it a little further.
Billy, listen to your big sister. You don't need to drive all over searching for the lowest gas prices. Do what I do and use Upside.
Upside?
Do you live under a rock, Billy? Upside is the hottest cashback app out there. It's free to download, and you get real cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. I use it all the time, and I've already made around $200.
You can make that kind of cash back just for buying the gas you have to buy anyway?
Yes, I'm looking at the Upside app now, and there's a gas station at the next exit offering 25 cents per gallon cash back.
Okay, I'm stopping to download Upside and fill up my tank. Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code PUMP to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code PUMP for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PUMP for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Do flowers have best friends? I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. It's where we get most of the comments coming in anyway, but then also YouTube, Twitter, and twitch.tv. Dropping those likes and reactions, we do appreciate, again, primarily the Facebook page. Sean Gardner, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, James Holmes, and Monica Cervantes. Again, we had take a lot of comments and other types of conversation going on there. And, yeah, whole lot of conversation related to those previous callers here. But let's just say that, again, it's a local radio show. We talk about the local things. So Friday territory exists. If you want to get into it, don't think I'm not equipped to do so, but we have our focus and we have the things that we consistently do. And so we make availability for other things if you're really, really wanting to. But if you're just wanting to slap people around because you think that they exist in this sphere in this way, no. Short answer. Anyway, back to those phone lines now. I'll give that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Jerry in the Northwest in line with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. Appreciate that.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
On this Amendment K or Proposition
Prop
K that
yeah.
they have going on. There's a thing in there that says that they're not going to allow water to companies that are not inside the city limits that deal in petroleum or fossil fuels. Is that correct?
That is a decent approximation. Let me see if I can pull up the actual part of it here. Again, anyone wanting to see this, all of the things that are going to be on this ballot are up now on epcountyvotes.com, which just as a side note, not to take away your point, does include a bunch of school boards in our area, but that's just a, hey, remember that here. But yeah, the full text of it is up over there on the Proposition K, which is very much the longest one. So let me see if I can do the water part for you real quick. Okay. To require the City of El Paso to ban the use of city water for fossil fuel industry activities, defined to include El Paso Electric, outside of the city limits, and to prohibit the City of El Paso from selling or transferring any water for purposes of fossil fuel industry activities outside the city limits, or otherwise allow any city water to be used for such purposes. That's the clause of what's actually on the ballot.
Yeah, so basically they're not going to let anybody that's not in the city limits that deal with fossil fuels have water.
Essentially for outside of city limits, which is an interesting line for it. That's one of the questions that I have that I'm hoping we'll be able to delve into is about, but not within the city limits, or is it just that my supposition, without having anything particular to point, is that trying to prevent it, if it's within the city of El Paso, prevent these kind of industries from co-locating outside of the city limits in order to get around the charter amendment. That's what I think it's getting at, though I don't have a concrete answer from someone I can point to clarifying that.
Okay. Do you know if Horizon City has their own water?
Oh, that's actually a good question. Hadn't thought about it that way. My assumption would be yes, but the fact of the matter is that there is, the El Paso Water, former El Paso Water Utilities, has kind of chopped off that last part in order to make it clear, is substantially still controlled. There is a position on the board, other control that happens from the city of El Paso, either through appointees or I think directly from like a couple of city council members are tasked with being on there and overseeing part of that as well. So maybe, but maybe not that much either. That's actually a pretty decent question. My assumption is that they're still substantially on the El Paso water system.
Okay, and Westway and Vinton, they've just switched over to El Paso water.
Okay.
So there's a large, large fuel truck stops in Horizon and in Westway, and then Vinton does have a large industrial area.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them things deal with petroleum things, fossil fuels. Whether it's getting rid of the old oil or hauling new oil, hauling water, hauling fuels. Are they going to be allowed to use that water is the city going to cut them off from water?
By the text of it, that would be a fossil fuel industry activity, unless there is some very specific language that I'm not seeing to that effect. So by my reading of what I just read to y'all, I would be inclined to say yes.
Do you think that's fair? Do you think the these other cities are going to just let El Paso, especially with this new thing, bully them, or do you think we may have a bunch of lawsuits?
Oh, I think that there would definitely be lawsuits, among other things. And to answer one of your previous questions, there is the Horizon Regional Municipal Utility District. So I think there is at least some water out there, among other things, because it was basically supposed to be Horizon City's founding in general. The way it's always been told to me was just to be way the hell out of El Paso and doing their own thing. So I do think they do have their own. They have their own tax rate, among other things. So there's the possibility to that part of your question. But yeah, I do think there's been other concerns that have been brought up to me by other people, including about, say, fuel oil recycling, not fuel oil, engine oil recycling operations and things like that are currently located outside the city limits, how that may affect them, among other things. More investigation being done by the people who brought those concerns up to me on that. So I'm sure that'll be a further part of the conversation as we get closer to D-Day, voting day, V-Day, maybe not, but the actual time of people going to the polls to vote on this.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering because I think that if El Paso votes this in, they're going to stab themselves and basically they're going to shoot themselves in the head because they're going to lose a lot of jobs, especially with Western refining. It's not going to stop. These people that want the environmental stuff, they don't stop at one point. They want to keep on going. They want complete control. And they're not going to stop. They're going to force Western Refining, or whatever it is called now, out of the city because of environmental issues.
Mm.
And that's going to force Western Refining to basically either shut down or move out. And it's going to cost them money and jobs anyway. So also all these little truck stops that are along the way, and that's what keeps Westway going, is some of these truck stops.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps Anthony going too. Now I know Anthony has its own water system. I'm not worried about Anthony too much.
Okay.
But there's other little cities. Socorro has its own little municipality.
Right.
But yet they have a lot of truck stops, and they have gasoline stations and stuff in Socorro.
Sure.
So I don't think Socorro has their own water system, do they?
I know there are water improvement districts down there, but my understanding has always been those are primarily focused on like canals. Doesn't mean that couldn't be a part of it, but not the place I'm most familiar, that area. I'm most familiar with those systems, I will say that.
Okay. Well, those are questions that need to be brought up in this meeting that they're having.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's tomorrow. Now, I'm not going to be able to make it to that meeting.
Sure.
But if there are somebody out there, they should be able to make it. Okay.
Yeah, that's the city council meeting happening tomorrow. This will be part of the many discussions. This is, I'll say, I know I say people should be involved, but city council meetings are a tough pull for a lot of people, and I entirely understand that. They often end up going the entire damn day, very much lately it feels like, and the item you're looking for, I swear, anyone who tells me they go out there for an issue that they want to talk about, it always ends up getting pushed later in the schedule. So I'm not going to blame anyone for not necessarily going out there and speaking directly on it, but I will say it behooves you to be informed, and we'll certainly talk about it, among other things.
Well, I hope some of your city representatives listen to your station here, because there's a lot of people out here that have an IQ above 10, not like Raul. But anyway,
all right.
We do have suggestions on this. My suggestion is it be voted down. And speaking of Raul, look up George Washington's letter to his brother John Augustine Washington on October 13th of 1775. See what he says about individuals and private citizens being armed. He was for it. Look it up, Raul. Don't take my word. Look it up. Oh, incidentally, Raul, I'm getting that off of Bing, the search engine, which
okay.
is not a right-wing conspiracy theory search engine. So, all righty, sir. You have a good day.
You too as well. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Yes, sir.
All right. And with that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We got a lot going on, a lot of comments coming in. So let's go ahead and take that break, get back to more phone calls on the line there. Again, if you want to get on the line, that number to use is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso fire crews responded to a large fire this morning at a doctor's office in West El Paso. It happened at 2930 North Stanton, right behind the Albertsons grocery store near UTEP. A spokesperson for the El Paso Fire Department said 14 units responded, but no one was in the building at the time of the fire. And 15 undocumented migrants were found in a train car in Texas on Friday night. Dozens of first responders, including Border Patrol, responded to the scene. The Uvalde Police Department said they received a 911 call from an unknown person who reportedly said numerous undocumented illegal immigrants were suffocating in a train car. Authorities said a total of 15 people were found inside that needed immediate medical attention. 3 of them were treated at the scene. 5 of them were airlifted to San Antonio area hospitals. 5 others were taken to local hospitals in Uvalde, and 2 of the migrants were found dead. I'm Iraca Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heads up for some slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound Copia out to the Hunter Viscount exit with 5-minute delays. I-10 westbound is starting to slow down from Sunland Park up to Trans Mountain with a 5-minute backup. Slow traffic on Zaragoza northbound Sunfire up to Montana, 7-minute delays there. Starting tomorrow morning, the US 54 southbound bridge to the eastbound Spur 601 will be closed. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Cold front rolling in for tonight. So the winds are going to go northerly to northeasterly, about 5 to 15, occasionally gusting up to 20 miles per hour. This should push our low temperatures down into the 30s for tomorrow morning. So certainly coat jacket for a Tuesday morning. We're looking at breezy and cool conditions for your Tuesday, only a high around 62. Lighter winds for our Wednesday, partly cloudy skies, high 76. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $3 breakfast deal. Wendy's $3 breakfast deal is your choice of bacon or sausage, egg and Swiss croissant, plus a small seasoned potatoes for just $3. Break your morning routine and get your $3 breakfast deal today. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
When your back pain is your foot's fault. This is Dean's story.
It was affecting me when I walked, which is a kind of a common activity.
Dean's chronic back pain had become a pain in the you-know-what.
At first, I just sort of ignored it, but eventually everything catches up to you.
Physically and mentally.
Back pain affects your mood. It really does.
But that's not the only connection Dean made.
A friend of mine suggested I go to the Good Feet store. I was a little confused. Why would I need a foot store? My feet are fine.
But he thought, what the heck? He had nothing to lose.
They took impressions of my feet, and with the footprint, they were able to get me a personalized arch support that lifted pressure off my back.
So the source of your back pain was right under your toes.
It's something maybe I should have known, but I found out in the nicest possible way.
See how arch supports work for you with a free fitting. Find your Good Feet store at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
Are you tired of listening to stories that are saturated with wokeness? If you are, then you should try Red Pilled America. We tell good old-fashioned stories that align with middle America values. Listen to Red Pilled America anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late.
Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you very much for tuning in, however you may be doing so, being on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Getting to as much as we can here, more of the show. We've been jam-packed today, and we've gotten really honed in on a couple of issues, I'll say. Of course, Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep Ram Fiat, 950 Crockett Street. Find them there just across Sunland Park, across from Sunland Park Mall, across I-10. So Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep Ram Fiat. And, of course, a lot of comments and other things coming in right now, including Marky Mandingo actually asking, how's Fella Health going? Still getting going with it. Got the shipment of medication actually last week. We'll have more updates coming for you on air. For those unfamiliar, I have a partnership with Fella Health, men's health and wellness app, specifically focused on weight loss, something I've been wanting to do ever since the COVID-15 for myself. Definitely felt that with not nearly as much movement. So partnership with them, getting going. Got my next set of meetings actually coming up this week, but starting to see some results. I'm hoping to snowball them and gain more momentum with them. I will say that. But let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. Full up in the moment, but remember that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Let's go ahead and get with Frankie MSC on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
I know you love talking about local issues.
And I'm a big fan
Yes.
of that because, gee, we live here in the Southwest border region, so it's important. But I got a local issue for you.
Sure.
We might have to redefine local, but it's in Texas. That's pretty local because it's Texas, specifically Waco. And by the way, that town is missing a K in the name of their town. It should really be Waco. But having said that, that Donnie Dotard doofus was there over the weekend, ranting and raving and his normal jerky stuff. But this is the big point. I asked you, Andrew J. Polk. I ask everybody out there in the Southwest border region or anybody in the United States of America, what is this mush? He out there said death and destruction. If he is indicted, that he is inspiring his whack job followers to go out there and create mayhem. Now, what is this stuff? The average person, should you go out and say, I'm going to burn this guy's house down, I hate this person, he would be arrested for terroristic threats. So I ask you, Andrew J. Polk, and everybody out there, how is it that this guy, the Donnie Dotard doofus, is not instantly arrested right now for sponsoring anarchy, or not anarchy, but terroristic threats? I ask you that. That's my opening comment.
I mean, there is a lot more. So I've actually sat in on some of the Supreme Court cases involving where things would come up about things such as fighting words. Essentially, since we've been talking about limits to other rights today, what limits does other rights have? Because, fire in a crowded theater, fighting words, threats of violence, etc., kind of things are seen as speech not protected by the Constitution, among other things. So I will say that in the specific circumstance you're talking about, there is a fine line, though it's often being examined by the courts, among other things, and even has in some of those cases. That was the Phelps, the Westboro Baptist Church case, the one I sat in back in 2010. One of the more substantive ones involving, the First Amendment protections thereof, the right to protest in that case. And in those cases, the words actually being used were, I cannot repeat some of them. Anyone familiar with the Westboro Baptist Church is, let's just say, they use some very choice language that I am super not going to repeat here. So, point is, they were using egregious and calling for, in that case, harm to an immortal soul, I guess would be the right way to put it, because they were saying that something should happen to someone already passed. So, threats of harm may or may not be totally provable in that case. And ultimately, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that case was decided in favor of effectively the Westboro Baptist Church, that they had the right to do so, even if it was distasteful, is a very way too insufficient of a phrase for what they were doing and how they were going about it. Let's just put it that way. So when we're talking about this, I mean, the former president is a well-known litigious individual. He has been the source of and also subject of many lawsuits over the years, by their business or personal. So if anyone should, I think, know where the line can be, it would probably be him. But let me just put this out there and make this perfectly clear. Anyone calling for threats, for violence, for anything bad to happen to someone specifically and violently is not someone that's going to get my support in those circumstances. Plain and simple.
Well, you're 100% right. I mean, you're a normal person. That's exactly the way a normal person should think, just what you just said. Oh, my goodness. Gee whiz. This guy gets out there. I don't care if he knows it or he doesn't. I'm thinking he doesn't. But all his advisors are not telling, hey, Donnie Dotard, don't be saying that, because you're inspiring criminal action. I mean, literally, come on. This is nuts. He's going out death and destruction. He's inspiring his nut jobs, uneducated bozos out there to go out and who knows what kind of mayhem that they want to create, because they follow him to the nth degree, because he knows that. And he's going to do this kind of thing and cause all kinds of horrible problems. I just don't understand, and I told this before, locally, almost every law on every state book, you cannot utter terrorist threats. And that's exactly what he's doing. Now, what do you think of that?
I mean, I get your perspective on it, and I don't want to say that this is also covered, at least in part, by public official, but let's just say that, because he's not a public official right now, but running for such, there is not exactly leeway, but people who put themselves out in the public sphere are both more subject to examination of themselves and their activities, particularly in elected office, and there's a lot of broad immunity to prosecution when in office. And I think some of that's been argued, at the very least, when it comes to, a presidential privilege for previous documents, other circumstances. So not saying it applies here, but there is not exactly different standards, but different ways it is taken and approached effectively. I mean, yeah, if you said, hey, this person at this address needs to have something awful, physically violent happen to him, probably would be something specific happening there. But again, I don't support it, but I would be surprised if in this circumstance anything prosecutorially happens there.
Well, and I get all of that. And I understand the larger segment of this. He is a nationally known figure.
Sure.
So some way in certain areas, he's sort of exempt from the normal rules and regulations and laws of everybody else. But I just think this whole thing is sick, the way he goes out and is intentionally inspiring nut jobs out there. That's my main point.
Okay, and I understand what you're saying, and for anyone confused about that, talking about the first, quote-unquote, first rally of the 2024 campaign, though I think it's arguable that he never really stopped campaigning, that he gave in Waco, Texas, earlier, over the weekend, actually.
Well, okay. Now, having said that, I got to read up on Proposition K. Something about you guys, you're mad about the water to do something with fracking. Is that what that is?
I guess it would have implications of fracking, but more or less, Proposition K, even on its own, just on the ballot, the actual line-by-line actionable words is about 450 words. And then the actual description, the 10 pages or so that it takes, is more than 2,500 words. So short, suffice to say, it's not as simple as that, but would have implications along that way. Among other things, it involves the city trying to buy El Paso Electric or being guided to do so by this language. And there's 10 or so subsections. I need to count them again, but there's quite a lot in there, including requiring renewable use by the city of El Paso entirely by 2040, 2045, that time frame.
Well, I hear that. Water is an important aspect of
Sure.
any human life or any kind of biological organism. And then I'm going to read up on that, and then I'll have to call you back because I'm not too sure what this all is about. But anyway, listen, another fun call. You are a great person. So you have a good day.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for supporting the call. You have a good one there as well.
All right, Andrew.
All right, and with that, let's squeeze in another call or two before we get to the end of the hour. Right now, we do have David in the Northeast on line with us right now. David, thanks for joining us. Oop. David, you there with us?
Andrew, I'm here.
Okay, there we go.
As always, thanks for allowing me to. How do I put this? This is I feel like this is the only platform within a 100-mile radius for me to talk about some of the most important issues. Now today, see a lot of times when I call in, usually I find myself calling in when there's been another issue. Like for instance,
sure,
the Nashville shooting today. Now, what piqued my interest is the fact that now they're blaming the laws again, just like they did in Texas after Uvalde. I mean, there's these groups, God bless them, Moms Demand Action. I mean,
sure.
I'm about to be a father. My wife's about to be a mother. So I understand. I understand you want to protect children. That's the most natural thing in the world. But
absolutely,
you have to go about it in the right way. For instance, the lax gun laws. They're blaming the governor for making it easier for people to protect themselves. These laws are what caused the shooting. Now, Andrew, think about how stupid this sounds. So you're telling me a criminal is going to say, wait a minute, the laws are that I have to obtain some kind of permit to get a firearm. So I'm not going to do this mass shooting because I can't do it legally. So all of a sudden, when a state goes permitless carry, do you think that these criminals say, you know what, I can get away with this because the law favors me? Nobody thinks that way. So another thing, Donald Trump he's in the news again. Now,
Yeah.
I've never been the biggest fan of Donald Trump. I mean, a matter of fact, I don't party these days because I don't believe in him. Because, for instance, now let's put it this way: a lot of people who like think traditionally, and are like I don't like labels, but let's say you're so-called conservatives. He appeals to them, and I understand because things are so bad that they feel like he's the only outlet to go to vent their frustration, and he's built up this rhetoric to where the average American who wants to see America the way it was when they were a kid, and probably when you were a kid, they feel like that's their only hope. And especially people who highly value the Second Amendment like me, just try to remember bump stocks were banned under Donald Trump. Now,
True.
Maybe he did say it, but it wasn't like his number one priority to save gun rights. Matter of fact, he catered to the individuals that try to do something about gun rights. Like, I mean, try to do something about crime. I'm telling you, making more gun laws that restrict citizens' right of self-protection. I mean, I can't say it enough. I mean, I know I've said it. It's been overstated, and a lot of people are tired of hearing it. But it's true. Now, again, how do you stop crime? Well, in my humble opinion, in which I can probably base it in fact, it's a culture change that needs to stop. I mean, what I mean by that is that look at the way your society is being governed right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, the principles and the values and the morals that we used to live by, it created it created a natural shield against people wanting to fall into that kind of sin and that kind of degeneration. And now, I believe we've talked before about how some people try to suggest that society has gone soft. What I mean by that is a lot of people say, well, we shouldn't see people in the streets in a civilized society carrying around guns all the time. Well, don't forget, during the times of the British rule, we've always been a civilized society, and we've had to, and because great men took up guns, and I'm telling you, I mean, look, I'm in the Army. My job is the infantry. I'm scared to have to defend myself. I'm scared of the thought of actually having to do something like that, of actually, of any kind of violence, and I'm trained to it. And again, so the mindset of those people in those days, this is not something they wanted to do, that they looked to do. It's not that they were gun nuts. It's just they were driven to this. And then because they trained themselves to arms, and because they, how do I put this? Because they were always on their toes, were able to give us this great nation that we still value today. So then we're going in the wrong direction. People forget that a civilized society always has a way to protect themselves. Now, one last thing I want to say before I close out, because I know time is running out on the show.
Yeah, we're getting there.
The fact that when people say they don't like guns, they want to take away guns from people, they don't want to get rid of guns. They just want it. It's like this meme that I've seen on Facebook. Just this is probably simpler to understand.
Mm-hmm.
There's a meme where somebody is stating, are you guys still protesting police brutality? Oh no, now we're saying that we only want the police to carry guns. And then it shows us a picture of a guy with a puzzled face, like, huh? How does that make any sense? I mean, that's where we've become. One minute they're wanting to disarm the police, and in the next minute they're saying that they want the only people they want to have guns is the police. I mean, that's how low we've stooped.
Yeah, I'll agree. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me either. But yeah, I tell you what, we got to take that break now. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
Thank you, Andrew, as always.
All right, and with that, we do have to take that break. So coming out of this break, we'll tell you we got coming up for you on the program and what is being planned. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic starting to back up I-10 westbound from Geronimo to the 54 Patriot with 5-minute delays. I-10 eastbound slowing from Copia to the Hunter Viscount exits, 5-minute delays. Eastbound Montana Avenue McRae out to Zaragoza, 13-minute delay. Stop and go traffic on Artcraft eastbound on and off between the state line and North Desert Boulevard. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
Did you know the modern supermarket can trace its roots back to one place? Piggly Wiggly. We'll have their story. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
The Mattawa Caves is a brand new fiction podcast that marries supernatural horror storytelling with an immersive psychological thriller. Tune in to uncover the chilling story and secrets as old as the caves themselves.
Without monsters, there are no victims, no prosecutions, no defenses, no justice.
Listen to the Mattawa Caves. That's MANTAWAUK Caves on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Why have over 2 million people trusted their bath remodels to Bathfitter? When a normal day is anything but normal, we fit your schedule with our unique tub-over-tub process installed in just a day with no demolition. When high quality is the only quality that matters, we fit your standards. We've been remodeling baths for over 35 years, and every bath we install comes with a lifetime warranty. Get the bath you want in a day with quality that lasts a lifetime. Bathfitter, it just fits. Visit bathfitter.com to book your free consultation.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Billy, your gas light's on. We need to stop and fill up.
No way, Jen. Gas around here is too expensive. We can make it a little further.
Billy, listen to your big sister. You don't need to drive all over searching for the lowest gas prices. Do what I do and use Upside.
Upside?
Do you live under a rock, Billy? Upside is the hottest cashback app out there. It's free to download, and you get real cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. I use it all the time, and I've already made around $200.
You can make that kind of cash back just for buying the gas you have to buy anyway.
Yes, I'm looking at the Upside app now, and there's a gas station at the next exit offering 25 cents per gallon cash back.
Okay, I'm stopping to download Upside and fill up my tank. Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code PUMP to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code PUMP for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PUMP for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Vision for El Paso is having their Laugh Launcher Comedy Night fundraiser on Wednesday, April 19th at Bart Reed's Comic Strip. 10 amateur comedians will be hitting the stage competing to see who can get the most laughs. It's a night full of fun and funny, all for a great cause. Get your tickets now at LaughTonight.com. That's LAFF2NITE.com. Don't miss the Vision for El Paso Laugh Launcher Comedy Night fundraiser, Wednesday, April 19th.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We've covered a lot of ground today, and we'll continue to do so tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Still working on those. Had some scheduling errors, unfortunately, come up with that AI interview. Still working on for you all, so we'll put that back on the schedule as soon as we can. But otherwise, a lot of other stuff going on affecting us here in the borderland, including what's going on with some more of those searches, with also what's going on with, say, other industries. Alcohol has had a surprisingly big boost in particularly retail sales in our area. We got some interviews coming up on those subjects as well as just continuing to school people on holding yourself to your own standard here. If you're intending on trolling here, just know I've been doing it longer than you. Anyway, let's go ahead and end the show there for today. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show in any way if you're actually wanting to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland. But until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic starting to back up I-10 westbound from Geronimo to the 54 Patriot with 5-minute delays. I-10 eastbound slowing from Copia to the Hunter Viscount exits, 5-minute delays. Eastbound Montana Avenue McRae out to Zaragoza, 13-minute delay. Stop and go traffic on Artcraft eastbound on and off between the state line and North Desert Boulevard. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
All right, everybody in the car. Let's go.
What are we going to do first when we get there, Mom? Go for a hike?
Sure, if you want.
What about canoeing? Can we go canoeing too?
I don't see why.
What about a bike ride? No, I want to fish.
Okay.
I've never been fishing.
Honey, we can do it all.
How long does it take to get to the forest?
It's not.
Is it going to be long?
No, sweetie.
I bet it takes forever.
It's not that far.
Are we there yet?
Yep, we're here.
Already? No way. Come on.
News on the hour and a half.
It's a short
Traffic
drive.
and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Police have ID'd the 3 kids and 3 adults killed by a shooter at a private Christian elementary school in Nashville on Monday. The kids killed at the Covenant Presbyterian School included 2 9-year-olds and 1 8-year-old. The shooter, a transgender Nashville woman armed with 2 assault-style weapons, was shot and killed by police inside the school. Nashville Mayor John Cooper.
Now I'm overwhelmed at the thought of the loss of these families, of the future